All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tearing down the curtains on something that affects, well, literally every single one of us every single day, especially during those, 2 a.m. impulse online purchases we all make. We are looking at the anatomy of a brain heist. Listen, it's really time we stop thinking of manipulation as some kind of dark magic or mystical mind reading. It's definitely not. What the latest behavioral science actually tells us is that manipulation is much more like a systemic cybersecurity breach, except the system being hacked is your very own mind.
So I want to start by asking you a really direct question. How do you actually know you're being manipulated? Seriously, think about it for a second. If I asked you to picture a manipulator right now, you'd probably picture a con artist, right? Someone weaving this massive web of deceit, telling you things that are just fundamentally untrue. We tend to naturally assume that if we are smart enough to spot a lie, our mental firewall is perfectly secure. But what if I told you that being smart actually has very little to do with it? You see, the big myth we all carry around is that manipulation just equals lies. If someone is tricking me, they must be lying to me. But the reality? It is completely different. Manipulation is actually about process control. A true manipulator isn't just a simple liar. They are acting way more like a malicious system administrator who has quietly gained access to your decision-making pipeline. They don't necessarily even need to alter the facts, as long as they can control how and when you process those facts. Ultimately, they just want predictable behavior from you. They want zero resistance, and they want incredibly fast compliance. So, to help you secure your own mental pipeline, we've laid out a structured roadmap for this explainer. We're going to cover 5 precise steps today. Number 1, the true nature of manipulation. 2, the psychology of the attack. 3, manipulation in the real world. 4, counter strategies for your mind. And finally, 5, avoiding the paranoia trap. We are basically going to audit your mental firewall step by step.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Section 1. The true nature of manipulation. Who controls the clock?
Time is absolutely the ultimate weapon in any influence system. The core mechanism of how hidden influence operates is basically this. You are manipulated when you feel pushed into conclusions way faster than you can properly verify them. That's the secret. Your decisions end up being shaped way more by external framing and emotional pressure than by your own independent reasoning. Because honestly, whoever controls your decision timing and your emotional state holds far more power over you than whoever controls your information. If someone can force you to make a call right now while you're super stressed out, it really doesn't matter how smart you are or how much data you have, they've already won. Moving on to Section 2, the psychology of the attack, exploiting the cognitive pipeline. So, our brains naturally use mental shortcuts to save energy, right? And manipulators specifically target those exact shortcuts when you're put under pressure. It's literally a process flow attack. It all starts with step 1, input and framing. The influencer artificially limits your options. They might show you just 2 choices, completely hiding any alternatives. Then, bam, step 2, emotional activation. They introduce intense urgency, maybe fear, or even extreme excitement right out of the gate. Why? Because that instantly triggers step 3, reduced verification. Your ability to step back and independently confirm facts just absolutely plummets. And finally, step 4, the fast decision. The trap snaps shut. When your emotion shoots up and your verification drops, your brain is forcefully switched out of its natural reasoning mode and pushed straight into compliance mode. And to force you down that pipeline rapidly, they use a very specific toolkit. Watch how these hit you all at once. First, urgency bias. They tell you to decide right now because speed kills your accuracy. Instantly followed by emotional hijack. Fear or excitement completely overrides your logic, so your emotions become the only engine driving the decision. Then, authority substitution. They leverage phrases like experts say or everyone knows, so you substitute their supposed authority for your own personal verification. And finally, cognitive overload. They blast you with way too much information all at once, completely destroying your clarity.
Now, what's really interesting about this next section is Section 3, manipulation in the real world, a cross-domain threat.
Okay, take a breath. That last part was totally overwhelming by design, right? That's what cognitive overload feels like. But what's genuinely fascinating here is that this exact sequence isn't just used by shady salespeople at a used car lot. It's literally everywhere. Look at trading systems on Wall Street, FOMO and panic cycles. That is just the emotional manipulation of your entry and exit timing. Or what about cybersecurity? Think of that fake, your account will be deleted in 24 hours email. That phishing attack in your inbox is literally urgency plus authority plus fear-based compliance. They want you clicking that link right now. Even our daily digital systems and social media feeds use this exact playbook. They rely on algorithmic emotional amplification to distort reality and just keep you endlessly scrolling. It is the exact same underlying vulnerability being exploited in completely different industries.
All right, let's talk defense. Section 4. Counter strategies for your mind. Patching the vulnerabilities.
Listen, if you've fallen for these tactics in the past, it definitely doesn't mean you're gullible, okay? It just means your mental operating system needs an update. And the absolute best way to patch it is to recognize this dominant pattern. Think of it like a mathematical equation that serves as a massive red flag. Rush plus emotion plus limited options equals a high manipulation risk. If your heart is suddenly beating really fast and you feel like you only have one extremely narrow choice, warning bells should be ringing loudly in your head. Your pipeline is actively under attack right then and there. Manipulation completely breaks down the moment your decision-making is forced back into slow, structured reasoning. So how do we actually activate that firewall? Well, we do the exact opposite of what the attacker wants. First, intentionally slow down your high-pressure decisions. If someone says it's now or never, you choose never. Second, ask yourself, what is being excluded here? Explicitly look for those hidden options. Third, treat your emotion as a signal, not as an instruction. You have to separate that initial emotional spike from your logical analysis. And fourth, seek at least 2 independent confirmations before taking any action. When you just force a delay and bring in outside verification, the whole manipulation attempt simply collapses.
Finally, let's look at Section 5, Avoiding the Paranoia Trap. Systemic pressure versus malicious intent. Because look, once you learn to see these patterns, there is a very real danger of starting to see ghosts in every single shadow. We have to learn to distinguish between malicious manipulation, which is someone intentionally trying to control you, and just normal systemic conditions. Modern behavioral science makes it incredibly clear that not every urgent situation is a manipulator pulling the strings. Sometimes real deadlines actually do exist. Sometimes an environment is just naturally fast-paced. And honestly, sometimes the bias isn't coming from an outside attacker at all. It's completely self-generated by our own minds. If we just assume there's a malicious mastermind behind every single high-pressure moment in life, we don't become safer, we just become paranoid and ineffective. Which brings us to this incredibly powerful quote from the source material. The strongest protection is not suspicion, it is structured decision discipline under pressure. True mental safety doesn't come from walking around constantly suspicious of your friends, your colleagues, or the media. Not at all. It comes from having a structured habit. It comes from knowing your own mind's vulnerabilities and having the rock-solid discipline to slow down and verify when the pressure gets turned up. So I really want to leave you with one final, provocative question to reflect on today. The very next time you feel that clock ticking down, you feel the adrenaline spiking in your chest and your options rapidly narrowing, will your next rush decision be a deliberate choice, or will it just be a forced compliance loop? The knowledge to tell the difference and the sheer power to take back control of your own decision pipeline is entirely in your hands. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and hey, keep your firewall strong.